Environmental engineering major, isn't that just about picking up trash? When I opened the admission notice, the aunt beside me blurted out straightforwardly. I thought for a moment, then sincerely took her hand and spent 3 hours popularizing the nature, positioning, great prospects, and social significance of my major. The next day, detected that the host has a great passion for the trash picking industry. You have awakened the superpower, the trash king, me, one. On the day when the zombie virus broke out and the end of the world arrived, all of humanity awakened superpowers. There were metal-based, wood-based, water-based, fire-based, earth-based, lightning-based, healing-based superpowers. 100 schools of thought contended, and 100 flowers bloomed, when a voice in my head told me, "Congratulations, you have awakened the top-level rare superpower, the Trash King." I held the plunger that appeared out of thin air in my hand and stared blankly at it for a long time. Finally, I resigned myself to the situation and replied, "Oh, in fact, when I thought about it carefully, although this superpower didn't sound very impressive, it wasn't that bad either, except that it was not very convenient when looking for teammates. For example, I have awakened the fire-based superpower, which is most suitable for frontal combat. I'm a water-based superpower. Although my combat ability is relatively weak, I can ensure everyone's daily life. I'm a healing-based superpower, an indispensable existence in the team. I'm a wood-based superpower. I'm a metal-based superpower. I'm an earth-based superpower." Finally, everyone turned their expectant eyes to me. After pondering for a moment, I solemnly said, "I'm a trash-picking superpower." I was kicked out of the team for the 101st time. I drove my brand new and beautiful little trash garbage truck. Clenched my fists in grief and indignation. What's wrong with picking up trash? There is a chance to excel in every trade. Before I could finish my lament, the in-car radio coldly reported, "A large amount of dry and wet garbage has been detected 500 meters to the northwest. Please go to recycle it immediately." Host. Oh, I obediently started my daily 996 work. My beloved car, Little Trash, is equipped with the most advanced automatic garbage positioning system and automatic driving system. In less than a minute, I arrived at the garbage gathering place indicated by the positioning. It was a large supermarket. It was obvious that it had been looted several times. Currently, it was in a state where not a single blade of grass remained after a hurricane passed through. Even a bird would want to shit here. I patrolled several times. Finally, with the friendly reminder of Little Trash, I found a very hidden door. After pushing the door open, there was a small warehouse inside. Is it because it's so hidden that no one found it? I turned on the light switch on the wall. Instead of rushing to recycle the garbage, I first took an inventory. These rows of shelves are filled with potato chips and biscuits. I'm getting a bit tired of eating them every day recently. There are nuts here. This is good. I like this. Chocolate, bread, spicy strips, instant noodles, and beef jerky. Hurry. After taking inventory of the dry garbage, I walked to another shelf where wet garbage was placed. Mineral water, Sprite, Coke, pure milk, sparkling water, Hawthorne juice. There's my favorite Wongzai milk. I happily stepped forward and drank a whole bottle of Wongzai milk in one go. Please don't randomly pick up and eat garbage during working hours. Host. The serious voice sounded in my mind again. Oh. I once again put on an honest expression and softly murmured in my heart, "Cleaning tool." The next second, a vacuum cleaner appeared in my hand. After pressing the button at the top, the vacuum cleaner started working on its own. In less than a minute, all the garbage in this entire warehouse was easily sucked in. 500 kilograms of dry garbage and 2 tons of wet garbage have all been recycled. After finishing the work, I happily carried the vacuum cleaner back to the car. After opening the door at the back of the garbage truck, I pressed the button at the top of the vacuum cleaner again. The garbage that had just been sucked in then jumped out all at once and fell into different positions in the car according to different classifications. Well, today is also a day of hard work. Looking at the full harvest in front of me, I showed a joyful smile. At 18 years old, I can drink water when I'm thirsty and pick up and eat garbage by myself when I'm hungry. The future is promising, too. Before I could be happy for even a minute, the cold in-car radio rang again. You have recycled this week. Dry garbage, 15 tons. Wet garbage, 28 tons. Recyclable garbage, 12 tons. This week's business progress, 35%. Please keep up the good work. Got it. I'll go to work right now. Okay. I let out a long sigh. I don't know what other people's superpowers are like, but the essence of my superpower seems to be a ruthless capitalist who glows, talks and resides in my mind and exploits employees. Since I awakened my superpower, there has always been a cold voice in my head, forcing me to clean up garbage everywhere. However, its definition of garbage seems to be a bit different from what I usually understand in daily life. For example, dry garbage refers to foods with relatively low water content such as rice, noodles, potato chips, and biscuits. Wet garbage mainly refers to water, beverages, as well as fresh fruits, vegetables, meats, and other foods rich in water. Recyclable garbage refers to various daily necessities and weapons. I have a performance indicator every week. I must clean up a certain amount of garbage in the city to meet the standard. As for the garbage I clean up, it is stored in my beloved car, Little Trash. Behind me, Little Trash is a car transformed by my superpower. It can hold any amount of garbage. When I drive Little Trash, the voice of the capitalist in my mind will disappear and instead appear in the form of an in-car radio. I have tried to talk to it several times, but except for issuing tasks, this capitalist has never paid any attention to me when doing garbage cleaning work. As long as I silently say cleaning tool in my heart, my superpower will automatically transform the most suitable tool for me according to the current type of garbage. For example, when handling dry and wet garbage, a vacuum cleaner is needed. It can easily suck in garbage within 100 tons. And it doesn't feel any weight at all when held in the hand. When moving the garbage into the car, it will automatically weigh the garbage and then spit it out. It is really an essential good companion for daily life and travel. Although I work for this capitalist without getting any salary, the advantage is that the recycled garbage doesn't need to be processed additionally. That is to say, I can do whatever I want with it. Currently, Little Trash has loaded more than 700 tons of dry garbage and more than 500 tons of wet garbage. It's enough for me to eat for 8 lifetimes. In the 3rd month since the end of the world arrived, I have gained an honorable 10 pounds. I was still immersed in the sadness of gaining weight when the ruthless voice of the capitalist sounded again. A large amount of hazardous waste, some other waste, a small amount of dry waste. Wet waste and recyclable waste have been detected 2 kilometers ahead. Please decide for yourself whether to go and recycle them. Host, the so-called decide for yourself doesn't mean that this big capitalist is being kind enough to give me, a small garbage collector, the right to choose. It's just that it disdains to go there because it thinks the profit is too insignificant. But I nodded seriously. I'll go. Of course I'll go. Hazardous waste and other waste are not included in my weekly performance indicators, but I can't just let them go, because hazardous waste refers to zombies, and other waste refers to living people. Little Trash, drive a little faster, I gently urged while silently saying cleaning tool in my heart. A classic set of broom and dustpan appeared in my hand. 3. Little Trash stopped in front of an abandoned hospital. The hospital was not very large and looked a bit old. After several waves of zombie tides, most of the buildings in the entire city had been destroyed, and this hospital in front of me was no exception. All I could see were broken walls and collapsed buildings. There were vaguely some dried bloodstains on the walls and the ground. Even standing in the big sun, it made people feel a faint chill at the bottom of their feet. I held the broom and dustpan and cautiously moved forward step by step. As soon as I entered the hospital, I heard a shrill scream coming from the 2nd floor. This is not good. I couldn't care about being cautious anymore and quickly rushed upstairs. As soon as I reached the stairway, a one-armed zombie stumbled towards me, its skin covered with corpse spots, its stinking gaping mouth, and its half-rotten face made people tremble involuntarily no matter how many times they had seen it. This zombie seemed to have not eaten for a long time. As soon as it saw me, a living person, it couldn't wait to rush over. Bang! I used the dustpan as a shield to block its attack. While the zombie was knocked back a few steps by the impact of the dustpan, I raised the broom and swung it hard at its head. An ordinary broom has almost negligible lethality to zombies, but the one in my hand was transformed by my superpower and has absolute destructive power to items judged as garbage. With just one blow, the zombie's head tilted to one side. I didn't show any mercy and directly bashed its head in a few strokes. After dealing with the zombie in the corridor, I didn't stay and continued running upstairs. Ah, help! Is there anyone who can save me? Suddenly, the shrill cry with a crying tone sounded again. The direction where the sound came from seemed to be the corridor on the left. I rushed towards the corridor on the left with great speed. As expected, there were more than a dozen zombies gathered here. In the corner at the end of the corridor, a thin girl was huddled. The zombies had surrounded her tightly. The closest one was only about a meter away from her. In the next second, it could directly pounce on her and bite off her throat. I was at least 30 meters away from her. It was simply too late to rush over now. There was no other way. I had to use that move, right? I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, concentrated my chi in my dantian, then suddenly opened my eyes and shouted loudly. Balala energy, wahulahu, the great dust-raising technique. My hands began to sweep the ground and at my feet at a speed that was difficult for the naked eye to catch. Where the broom passed, a dust storm began to gather. In an instant, a dust tornado column formed by the gathering of dust appeared in the middle of the corridor. As I waved my arm forcefully, the dust tornado rushed towards the group of zombies and swept them into it, knocking them around, taking advantage of this moment. I continued to cast the spell, the secret technique, the great beating technique. After shouting this sentence, I made a knight's charging movement and directly rushed into the group of zombies that had been swept into the dust tornado. I picked up the broom and dustpan and started beating them wildly. Where the broom reached, it was like breaking dry wood and destroying rotten leaves. Invincible. Who dares to claim invincibility? Who dares to say undefeated? The dustpan strikes and they all disappear. In less than half a minute, this group of zombies were all defeated by me. After dealing with the zombies, I quickly and concernedly helped up the girl in the corner. For some reason, she was crying even louder now. What's wrong with you? Have you been bitten by a zombie? Damn it. Could it be that I was still a step too late after all? No, I'm fine. The girl shook her head, but tears still fell down in large drops. Then what's the matter with you? I asked in confusion. When you used that great dust-raising technique just now, the sand got into my eyes, the girl sobbed, and I accidentally ate a mouthful of it. I scratched my head in embarrassment. The broom and dustpan were my most commonly used weapons against zombies. For ordinary zombies, this combination could be said to be invincible, but it also has several obvious disadvantages. One is that all weapons must shout out very embarrassing incantations when using specific skills. The other is that it may accidentally injure friendly forces occasionally. After finally calming down that girl, I was just about to ask her why she came here, but as soon as I opened my mouth, I found that this person seemed a bit familiar. After looking at each other for a second, the other party spoke first. Aren't you the trash superpower from this morning? For some unpleasant memories came flooding back. When I was picking up garbage this morning, I met a small team composed of more than a dozen superpower users. 70% of the people in this city had been urgently transferred to a safe base by the government army when the zombies came. The remaining unlucky ones had also formed small groups on their own and evacuated from the city, heading towards the base. I hadn't seen any living people for almost a week, let alone a team of more than a dozen people. So I was very excited and went up to greet them, hoping to join their team. I'm a trash-picking superpower. When I happily drove little trash and wanted to share the thousands of tons of supplies I had stored during this period with them, they burst into laughter directly. Haha, the trash superpower. This is the first time I've heard of such a superpower. It's not the trash superpower, it's the trash-picking superpower, I patiently corrected. The superpower of picking up trash. Haha, it's so ridiculous. What's the use of such a weak superpower? That's right, I told you these women are useless. They act high and mighty usually, but when it comes to the critical moment, they still have to rely on us men. Such a useless superpower will just waste our resources if it joins the team. Don't bother with her, Archer. Just let this trash girl stay here and pick up trash properly. I was a bit angry, but I still argued. I have a lot of resources myself and won't use yours, and you haven't even seen my superpower. How can you conclude that it's useless? Haha, this trash girl actually said she has resources. It's so funny. I think they are all just rags picked up from the sewer. The group of people laughed loudly, calling me trash girl one after another. I wasn't unfamiliar with this kind of situation. After the end of the world arrived, the previous order collapsed suddenly. People's social status was no longer determined by their past morality, talent, or power and money. Instead, it was simply determined by the strength of their superpowers. The stronger the person, the more say they would have. It seemed to have become the norm for the strong to casually insult and laugh at the weak. Although I couldn't change this norm for the time being, I didn't want to go along with such people. So I didn't say anything more and silently walked towards my little trash garbage truck. Wait a minute, did I tell you that you could leave? At this time, the man in his 30s who looked a bit greasy at the front spoke up. They called him Archer, and it seemed that he was the leader of this team. I turned around to see what kind of nonsense this person could say. Archer's small eyes rolled around on me a few times, and there was an indescribable obscenity in his eyes. I've never played with a female student before. Hey, trash girl, as long as you accompany your brother to have a good time tonight, your brother will guarantee that you'll have a good life from now on. What do you think? He showed a confident and greasy smile on his face and swaggered towards me. Before he even reached me, his hands were already reaching out dishonestly. Go to hell, you son of a bitch. I never show mercy to such people. I directly kicked him in the groin. After confirming that I had accurately hit the target, I didn't linger. Before the other people's superpowers could reach me, I quickly jumped into the car and drove away. I thought I wouldn't have any more dealings with these people, but unexpectedly, it was a case of enemies running into each other. I ran into them again. I looked at the girl who seemed a bit guilty now. If I remembered correctly, she should be a metal-based superpower user. The metal-based superpower was considered a relatively good one. However, I could sense that she didn't use it very well and her strength wasn't very strong. When the others were laughing at me this morning, she didn't join in, so I didn't have a bad impression of her. I'm sorry. When those people bullied you this morning, I didn't speak up for you. The girl lowered her head. I was afraid that if I stood up for you, they would kick me out of the team too, so it's okay. I'm not someone who likes to dwell on the past. By the way, where are they? Why are you here alone? The girl's expression changed. Those bastards are not human at all. What are we? A familiar and greasy voice suddenly came from the corner of the corridor. Kinsley, you can't turn your back on us. Didn't your brothers take good care of you? The girl named Kinsley's face instantly turned deathly pale. Her lips quivered, but in the end, she didn't say a word. Don't be afraid. I patted her shoulder and then stepped forward to face the approaching group of people. There were 10 men and 2 women. I noticed that the 2 women were dressed much more revealingly than in the morning, and there were some ambiguous marks on their bodies. Yo, isn't this the trash girl from this morning? A rowdy guy named Raleigh stepped forward. What a coincidence. As he spoke, he spat hard on the ground and then pointed at the spit with a smirk. Aren't you a trash picker? Why don't you hurry up and wipe up your brother's saliva? I wasn't interested in this kind of small fry who could only talk trash. I coldly looked at Archer, who was standing in the middle of the crowd. Unlike that Raleigh, when Archer saw the scattered zombie limbs in this corridor, his face turned dark. It should be said that he was worthy of being the leader of this group. He still had some ability after all. Archer immediately noticed that being able to quickly kill so many zombies. My skills were definitely not as weak as they had previously thought. Sister, Archer lit a cigarette and smiled. You're quite capable. I misjudged you this morning. What do you say? Do you want to join my team? As he spoke, he walked towards me step by step. I raised my eyebrows and said slowly, but I only know how to pick up trash. It doesn't matter. With your brother here to protect you, you can pick up as much trash as you want. I tilted my head and pretended to be thinking. That's so nice, but I might still waste your resources. You know, the Raleigh, who had been ignored just now, seemed a bit dissatisfied. He quickly interrupted. That's right. Such a useless person will only hold us back even if she joins the team. Archer, you can't. Shut up. Archer turned around and glared at him. A small fireball hit Raleigh, and he jumped back a long way. Sister, don't bother with this idiot. Archer looked at me and showed a kind smile again. Our team really needs talents like you. I also returned a kind smile. That's great. I also really need you guys, these kinds of trash to complete my daily performance indicators. My hand quietly went behind my back. Kinsley, who was beside me, saw that I was chatting happily with Archer and suddenly became anxious. Don't believe his words. This person is simply a scumbag. He tried to molest me just now. When I refused, he directly asked someone to throw me here and deliberately lured a group of zombies to try to kill me. Hearing Kinsley's accusation, Archer's oily face twisted for a moment. Don't believe this bitch's words, I silently recited in my heart. Cleaning tool. Then, I showed a smile that I thought was cold to Archer. Trash is talking. 5. Damn it, you shameless bitch. You don't know what's good for you. Archer's face instantly became ferocious. After spitting hard on the ground, he shouted to the people behind him, brothers, all of you go up and teach this bitch a lesson so that she knows how powerful we are. I didn't show any weakness and directly took out the weapon transformed behind my back, a brand new, extra large bottle of Mr. Muscle Toilet Cleaner, with powerful dirt removing, deodorizing and stain removing properties, and more quantity without increasing the price, made its grand appearance. I gently squeezed the bottle, and a large amount of blue liquid sprayed out, directly hitting the people in front of me. When the liquid landed on their skin, white smoke sizzled, and even the smell of corrosion could be smelled. There were screams everywhere. Damn it, Archer, this woman is so powerful. Several people who had been splashed the most began to have second thoughts. What are you afraid of? Are we so many people still unable to beat this one bitch? Archer took the lead in launching an attack. A fireball with a radius of nearly 1 meter directly rushed towards me head-on. For an ordinary person, as long as they were touched by this fireball, I'm afraid they would turn into ashes in less than a few minutes, but I just smiled slightly and didn't dodge or avoid it. The fireball enveloped me and burned fiercely. However, after a full half-minute, I didn't have a single wound on my body. Impossible. My superpower actually failed. Archer's face showed an expression of disbelief. How is it possible that someone can completely immunize my superpower attack? Perhaps because his inner shock was too great, and the emotional fluctuations caused his superpower output to become unstable. Before long, the fire went out on its own. Fool, I patted my clothes. Don't you see what I'm wearing? That's right. Just when I shouted for the cleaning tool, what was transformed was not only the extra large dose Mr. Muscle, but also this set of combat clothes. A dust-proof hat and mask, an orange-yellow cleaning uniform, rubber gloves and boots. Wearing this invincible cleaning equipment, I was now almost no different from the sanitation workers on the street. My cleaning ability and my defense against trash had reached a peak that was difficult for ordinary people to imagine. How could a mere fireball hurt me? The people in Little Trash looked at me in shock, hardly daring to believe what was happening in front of them. But they still gritted their teeth and shouted, "Damn it, everyone go up together, let's fight this woman to the death." The water-based superpower that formed ice pillars for attack, the wood-based superpower that summoned vines to firmly grab my legs, the earth-based superpower that raised a sky-high dust, the metal-based superpower that conjured countless iron weapons and flew them towards me. For a moment, countless attacks were directed at me, standing in the center of the storm. I quietly closed my eyes, inhaling and exhaling. In the process of breathing in and out, I seemed to be one with heaven and earth. When I opened my eyes again, my eyes were clear, and there was a hint of compassion in my breath. I slightly opened my mouth, and a string of devilish incantations came out. Leave the difficult to clean dirt to me. The new Mr. Muscle Toilet Cleaner, with a powerful formula that doesn't irritate the nose, evenly covers, powerfully removes dirt, makes it clean immediately, and also has a fresh smell. As the incantation was chanted, the bottle of toilet cleaner in my hand emitted a layer of holy white light. The next second, countless blue liquids sprayed out. Their endless and fearless appearance seemed as if they were going to dye the entire world their color. All the attacks were silently disintegrated the moment they came into contact with the blue liquid, and they couldn't even slow down its spraying speed in this small corridor. It was now like a blue rainstorm was falling. No one could escape this rain. Countless screams and the sizzling sound of gas were heard. At the same time, a new weapon appeared in my hand. As everyone knows, some weapons can only exert their true power when they are used in cooperation with each other. For example, a broom and a dustpan, washing powder and a laundry brush. And for another example, Mr. Muscle Toilet Cleaner and the 3-inch long toilet brush that was now lying quietly in my hand. I concentrated my chi in my dantian, took light steps, and turned the brush into a sword, stabbing towards the people in front of me. The sword energy was like a white rainbow piercing the sun, and the sword shadow was like the wind sweeping away fallen leaves. In an instant, no one could stand in front of me anymore. Bang! As the last figure also fell to the ground, I silently said, "Take it back," and the rainstorm and sword intent that had been raging in the small corridor all dissipated. "Who on earth are you?" Before completely fainting, Archer looked at me unwillingly and asked his last question. I smiled faintly. "Just a passing trash picker." 6. Kinsley, who had witnessed the entire battle from the side, had been in a state of stupor with the expression of "Who am I? Where am I? What on earth is happening here?" for a full 5 minutes. It wasn't until I took out the vacuum cleaner that she came to her senses and ran up to ask me, "Did you kill all those people?" There was an indelible fear and tremor hidden in her eyes. "Ah, why would you have such a dangerous thought?" I scratched my head. "They just fainted for the time being." As I spoke, I pressed the switch at the top of the vacuum cleaner. In less than a second, all the people who had fallen to the ground were sucked in. Kinsley once again showed an expression of her worldview collapsing. Well, seeing more than a dozen living people being sucked into a vacuum cleaner with her own eyes, the impact was indeed a bit too great. In order to explain that I really wasn't dealing with a crime scene, I pulled Kinsley towards my precious car. "Open." With an order, the car door slowly opened. "Your car, this car." Kinsley stared blankly at the scene inside and couldn't utter a complete sentence for a long time. "The inside is bigger than the outside, right?" I helped her complete the second half of the sentence. "That's right. My garbage truck looked ordinary on the outside, but there was a whole new world inside. The space inside the car was endless at a glance. 5 huge doors that seemed to be dozens of meters high stood majestically. Written on the 5 doors were dry garbage, wet garbage, recyclable garbage, hazardous waste, other waste. The moment the car door opened, these 5 huge doors also opened simultaneously. I pressed the button at the top of the vacuum cleaner. The group of people who had just been sucked in, along with some of the supplies they were carrying, flew towards different doors according to their respective classifications. Most of the people flew directly into the hazardous waste door, and 2 were classified as other waste. Thinking about it carefully, there were indeed 2 people who hadn't attacked me much just now. It seemed that their consciences were still intact. They, Kinsley stammered, pointing at the people who had flown in, wanting to ask, but not knowing where to start. "This car will automatically classify all people and things into different types of garbage," I patiently explained. "Zombies and those people who have lost their humanity that you saw just now will be classified as hazardous waste. And people who still maintain the normal human conscience will be classified as other waste." "Are there zombies hidden in that door?" Kinsley looked at me in shock. "No." I shook my head. "Although theoretically it's possible, I've only put people in there." This was not a lie. During these months since the city fell, I had met all kinds of people who bullied the weak and committed all kinds of evil, people who were righteous and helped those in distress, and ordinary people who were just struggling to survive in this difficult world. I didn't think I had the power to judge and decide the fate of these people, so for most people, I took them into the car with their consent. The moment they entered the car, their physical and mental states would be frozen until they were released from the car and returned to normal. I promised to take these people to a safe base. As for those people who had committed heinous crimes, The base would have the government and laws to judge them at that time. I was just a person in charge of collecting garbage. Now you have 3 choices. I looked at Kinsley. 1. You can choose to leave on your own and go wherever you want. I won't stop you. 2. You can also go into my garbage truck like those people. In your case, you should be classified as other waste. I will send all of you to the base safely. 3. The passenger seat of my car is still empty. If you are willing to be my travel companion, we can set off together. Kinsley hesitated for a minute. I'm sorry, I really want to help you, but as you can see, my strength is very weak and I can't be of any use in a fight. In the end, she chose to walk into the garbage truck. I touched my nose and secretly sighed. Alas, it's really difficult to find a travel companion these days. Before going in, she asked me one last question. Your ability is so powerful. You can leave at any time if you want. But why are you still staying in the city until now? I shook my head with a bitter smile and didn't answer her question. In the city, I was probably the only one who was not allowed to leave until I completed that task. 7. At the same time that I just awakened my superpower, a frame appeared in my mind. There were several lines of large characters written in the frame. Novice task. If you can't even clean one city, how can you clean the world? Please recycle all dry garbage. Wet garbage and recyclable garbage in the city. Task time limit, none. Note, before completing this task, the host will not be able to leave the city. The task only made requirements for basic supplies such as dry and wet garbage and recyclable garbage. In the first month after the zombies first broke out, most of the supplies in the city were transferred together with the citizens by the government. The remaining part was looted, and the leftovers were what I had to recycle. However, this was after all a big city that had once accommodated millions of people. Even the leftovers were in large numbers starting from thousands of tons. So in these months, driving the garbage truck around to pick up garbage, and by the way, killing zombies and helping people I met on the way, had become my daily routine. Little trash. What is my task progress now? Detected that the task progress is 97%. Remaining task progress, 3%. The last 3%. Finally, it had come to this moment. I sighed. Most of the remaining resources in the city were basically in my precious car. In these few days, I finally reached the point where there was nothing left to pick up, and that remaining 3%, I wasn't unaware of where it was hidden. It was just that I had always tried my best to ignore that place, but now it was finally time to face it. The Central Shopping Mall, which was a landmark building in the city, was the place where the zombies first broke out and had the highest concentration and strength of zombies. If this city was compared to a map in a game, then that place was undoubtedly the lair of the boss, the nest of all the zombies. When I first got my superpower and didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, I went to challenge it once and almost died halfway, not to mention that there were at least tens of thousands of zombies inside. And the strength of each one was much stronger than ordinary zombies. It was said that there was a super strong zombie of the king level hidden in the deepest part of the building. Even now, after several months of training and with my strength having advanced by leaps and bounds, I still didn't think I could wipe out the entire place alone. But I still have to go. I shrugged. There must be a way when the car reaches the mountain. First, I'll go and explore the scene again. However, when I really stood in front of the Central Shopping Mall and saw the more than 10-meter high wall in front of me, I was stunned. Little trash, are you sure this is the city center shopping mall? I swallowed a mouthful of saliva. To be precise, the entrance to the mall is 10 meters behind this wall. Little trash replied, why was there a high wall suddenly built in front of the mall? I drove the car closer and leaned out of the car window to carefully observe this wall that had appeared out of thin air. The wall was gray-white. In many places, there were dried-up, blackish things that resembled bloodstains. The wall exuded a strong stench of decay. This was definitely not an ordinary wall. Little trash, can you jump over this wall directly? If possible, I didn't really want to touch this wall. I always felt a bit uneasy. Yes, the next second, the car leaped into the air, just like a nimble cheetah, gracefully and swiftly leaping over the high wall. However, the next second, what appeared in front of me was actually another identical high wall. Little trash, keep jumping, don't stop. I gritted my teeth and shouted, received. 1 wall, 2 walls, 3 walls. In just half a minute, Little Trash actually jumped over more than a dozen walls. These walls were almost exactly the same in length, width and height, but as I jumped further and further, I gradually discovered their differences. Little trash, stop. I opened the car door with a solemn expression and got out of the car. From just now until now, I noticed that the amount of dried up black blood on all the walls was getting more and more, and the further back I went, the brighter the color of the blood became. Black, purple, black, dark red. The one in front of me was even completely blood red. The blood stains looked very fresh, bright red, when I got close. I could even smell a strong rusty smell, but there was no sign of it flowing down. Without accident, this should be the last wall. What kind of sacred thing was hidden behind this wall, and what was the purpose of building these walls? 8. Before entering the building, I carefully prepared a full set of cleaning equipment in advance: a gas mask, a mask, gloves, boots, a cleaning uniform, a broom, a dustpan, insecticide. Little Trash was parked outside. I had told it in advance that as soon as it heard anything wrong, it should come in immediately to pick me up. Taking a deep breath, I slowly walked into the building. It was very quiet inside the building. I could even hear my own breathing clearly. The ground was extremely clean. Rather, it was too clean. The goods were neatly placed on the shelves. There were no traces of people or zombies moving around, no bloodstains, no stumps, no strange smell remaining. It was as clean as if it had just been built. If there was anything wrong, it was that there seemed to be a few unknown wildflowers blooming in the corner of the mall. Other than that, there was nothing else on the entire first floor. I steadied my mind and slowly walked towards the second floor. To my surprise, after climbing 10 floors in a row, the scene in front of me was almost the same as that on the first floor: a deathly silence. The zombies that had been lurking in this building suddenly disappeared without a trace. In their place were the unknown wildflowers blooming quietly in the corners. The higher I climbed, the more of these flowers there seemed to be. I tried spraying them with herbicide, but the flowers showed no signs of withering. The broom and dustpan were also no match for them. Not judged as garbage, I frowned. The cleaning tools transformed in my hands had extremely strong combat power against items judged as garbage, but for non-garbage items, their damage was basically zero. I didn't dare to touch the flowers rashly and reluctantly continued to climb up. On the 12th floor, I finally heard some rustling noises, the sound of stiff walking, heavy breathing, and a low, beast-like growl. There was no mistake. There were definitely zombies on this floor. The sense of disappointment from finding nothing on the first dozen floors was all transformed into fighting spirit at this moment. I held a broom in my left hand and a dustpan in my right hand. With insecticide tucked in my waist, I shot towards the source of the sound like an arrow leaving the bow, the most powerful, the most fierce, the king of aerosol insecticides. Once XX comes out, mosquitoes and flies will surely be eliminated. My voice reached first before my person. My angry roar resounded throughout the entire floor. The insecticide at my waist hissed and sprayed out. An ominous mist instantly filled the entire 12th floor. All the beings that were directly exposed to the aerosol of the insecticide without wearing protective clothing would have their visibility, agility, and defense reduced sharply. The zombies let out fierce growls from their mouths and frantically searched for the human who had launched the attack on the entire 12th floor like mad dogs out of their cages. Taking advantage of this moment, I quickly swung the broom and fiercely attacked the zombie closest to me. Bang! The skin of the zombie was so hard that it was almost like metal. Hitting it with the broom made my go numb, but I didn't dare to stop at all. The aerosol of the insecticide had a time limit. If I didn't kill as many zombies as possible now, it would be troublesome when the effect wore off. Bang, bang, bang. Secret technique, the great beating technique. Balala energy, wahulahu, the great dust raising technique. Secret technique, the autumn wind sweeping the fallen leaves. Bang. Bang, bang, bang. The sounds of beating, collisions, and incantations rose and fell one after another, playing a noisy dance in the entire 12th floor. Zombies fell one by one. Phew, so tired. I don't know how long it had passed. The mist in front of me gradually dissipated. I leaned against the wall, a little out of breath. From just now until now, I had been tensing myself up, continuously outputting, and releasing skills and moves without stopping for a moment. My whole body was extremely exhausted, and now my fingertips were trembling, but the good thing was that most of the zombies on the 12th floor had basically been cleared. Take a break first. There shouldn't be any zombies daring to come near here for the time being. I slowly sat down along the wall, but at this moment, a gray-white hand with purplish-black nails suddenly appeared in front of me and fiercely attacked my face. So fast. When did it come? No. If there was a zombie moving at high speed, I should be able to feel it. Could it be that this zombie had been secretly hiding and lurking around me since just now? Did they already have such a high level of combat intelligence? In horror, I quickly shouted in my mind, cleaning tool. However, because I had consumed too much physical strength just now, it took longer to transform the weapon this time than before, and that hand was already in front of my eyes. Damn it, it's too late at that moment. I could only hear my own heartbeat that seemed to have stopped, but the next second, a vine flew over at a speed that was almost impossible for the naked eye to catch from another direction. The vine quickly wrapped around the zombie's wrist the moment it touched it. In an instant, it tightly bound the entire zombie. Then, the vine suddenly tightened, directly tearing the zombie into countless pieces. This whole series of attacks, which were as smooth as flowing water, happened in just a few blinks of my eyes. By the time the zombie was completely eliminated, my cleaning tool had finally been successfully transformed. Who's there? I narrowed my eyes and reluctantly entered a combat stance again. This find obviously came from a superpower user, and most likely a wood-based superpower user. I remembered the empty scene downstairs and the wildflowers blooming in the corners. Could it be that the zombies downstairs were also cleared by this person alone? This person's strength was unfathomable. Although the other party had just saved my life, out of caution, I still didn't dare to relax my vigilance. If the other party suddenly launched an attack, I might not be a match for them in my current state. I could only try to bluff and make myself look less easy to mess with. A tall and thin figure emerged from the gradually dissipating mist and slowly approached me. When that person finally walked in front of me, I saw an expression of surprise on his face that was the same as mine. "Why is it you? Why are you here too?" we both exclaimed in surprise at the same time. 9. Paxton, my high school classmate and long-time old rival. All along, he and I had been steadily competing for the top 2 positions in the school's grade ranking. I had originally planned to determine the winner in the college entrance examination, but unexpectedly, both of us fell ill during the 2 days of the college entrance examination. Later, I found out that some people who obtained high-level superpowers often had strong side effects when they awakened. That was the reason why Paxton and I fell ill, and after that, the zombie virus broke out, and the end of the world arrived, of course, as students who had just finished the college entrance examination. Even if the world was about to end, the first words when we met would definitely be, "How did you do in the college entrance examination? What was your score?" "I didn't perform well. I only got into B University," Paxton answered first. "Coincidentally, I'm also in B University." I scratched my head, "But my score might be even lower than you think. I wasn't admitted to the major I applied for and was transferred to another major." Actually, I was too. I saw a subtle expression on Paxton's face, and I couldn't help but have a guess in my heart. "Let's count to 3. We'll say our majors at the same time," I suggested. 3, 2, 1. Civil engineering, environmental engineering. Silence, silence. After looking at each other in silence for 3 seconds, I couldn't help but speak. "Civil engineering, isn't that just about moving bricks? Environmental engineering, isn't that just about picking up trash?" Paxton and I spoke at the same time, and then we both silently closed our mouths and turned our heads sadly. The awkward situation didn't last long, and we quickly got to the point. "When I came to this building before, there were still a lot of zombies here, but just now, when I walked up all the way, there wasn't a single zombie downstairs. Did you clean them all up?" I took the lead in raising my doubts. Paxton nodded. "I had nothing to do here, so I just cleared the monsters casually." Tisk. It seemed that this guy's superpower was definitely not ordinary. "You used vines to save me just now. Are you a wood-based superpower user?" But in my impression, the wood-based superpower was considered relatively weak. "Yes and no." Paxton's expression became subtle again. "I have 2 superpowers, a double superpower user." I had met quite a few superpower users in the city, but this was the first time I had heard of someone having 2 superpowers at the same time. "Then what's your other superpower?" "Earth-based superpower." I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Civil engineering, so having earth-based and wood-based abilities made sense. It was well-founded and convincing. Paxton's face darkened. "Your superpower isn't that great either. Just now, I thought some cleaning ant had come here to clean." Cough, cough, caught off guard by his exposure, and thinking that he must have heard me chanting the incantations just now, I suddenly felt a bit embarrassed. All right, let's stop bickering and have a serious exchange of our situations." Next, we quickly shared the basic information about our abilities and our experiences in the city in the past few months. Paxton's journey was actually quite simple. His superpower was extremely strong. After the zombies broke out, he had been trying his best to sweep away the zombies in the city and help the living people passing by. Before long, he realized that the source of the zombies in this city seemed to be in this building, so he came here and started climbing the building from the first floor, clearing the zombies floor by floor. "Wait, those walls outside the building couldn't have been built by you, could they?" I looked at him in surprise. "Were you that bored? Why did you build that thing? The zombie corpses won't disappear on their own. Every time I kill them, I have to do a lot of aftermath work," Paxton said helplessly. Later, I was really bored, so I just tried to use those zombie pieces as building materials to build walls and hone my civil engineering skills in advance. I rolled my eyes speechlessly, so the walls that I had been so careful to avoid before were just the result of this guy's whim. No wonder those walls had such a strong smell of blood. I realized this guy. "By the way, there aren't many living people left in the city. Why are you still staying here all the time?" I continued to ask. I didn't leave because I couldn't leave until I completed the task, but for Paxton, I really couldn't see any reason why he had to stay here. Paxton hooked the corner of his mouth into a smile. Because I have a task that I must complete, just like you. I raised my eyebrows. What task? What's your completion progress now? 0. My task progress is still 0% now. 10. I was a bit surprised, to be honest. I had originally guessed that Paxton's task should be something like clear all the zombies in the city, so he had been working hard to climb the building here. It seemed that wasn't the case, but what kind of task was it that, with Paxton's ability, he still hadn't made any progress until now? I couldn't help but be a bit curious. Paxton shook his head. My task itself isn't too difficult, but the trouble is that I need to complete a pre-task first before I can start my formal task. Pre-task, originally, I was also confused, but after seeing you, I knew what to do. What was all this nonsense? How was it related to me? I looked at Paxton with a confused expression. My task is, after the city is cleaned up, carry out post-disaster reconstruction. Paxton looked at me with a smile. So that's how it was. I finally understood why Paxton said that he didn't know how to complete this task until he saw me. His formal task was post-disaster reconstruction. And the pre-task that must be completed before that was clean up the city, and cleaning the city and recycling garbage were precisely my tasks. In other words, Paxton couldn't start his task until I completed mine. TSK, I didn't expect our two tasks to be linked in such a dreamy way. However, post-disaster reconstruction was really a task that suited civil engineering people. I couldn't help but laugh. The two of us, one picks up trash and the other moves bricks, we're really a pair of big losers, a happy father-son duo. I'm the father, Paxton answered seriously, so I gave him a loving beating. After the exchange of basic information, I enthusiastically invited him to take a tour of my little trash. See that door? I pointed to the door marked hazardous waste. That's your eternal home. Stop joking. Paxton also smiled kindly, just because my conditions are better. You can't keep wanting me to marry into your family every day. TSK, this dog man. After another round of communication full of laughter and joy, we finally seriously discussed our action plan for the next step. Anyway, we must first clean up this building. My task is only left with the last 3%. As long as we kill the zombies in this building and recycle the resources into little trash, it should be possible to complete it. This building has a total of 15 floors. Now 12 floors have been cleared. That means there are still 3 floors left, although it doesn't seem like much. If I remember correctly, there is a zombie king on the top floor whose strength is far beyond that of ordinary zombies. Paxton frowned. During the time you've been here, you've never encountered the zombie king even once? I asked curiously. No, Paxton shook his head. The zombie king has always stayed on the 15th floor and hasn't changed his position. I knew he was upstairs, because before entering this building, I first observed the situation here with binoculars from the relatively safe building opposite. Although I only took a quick look at him from a distance through the binoculars, I still remember the terrifying pressure he exuded at that time. Paxton said very calmly, I don't think either of us has the strength to defeat him, but if the two of us work together. It's hard to say, right? I looked back at him equally calmly. It's not a question of whether we can do it, it's that we have no choice but to do it now. I'm not the kind of person who will shirk my responsibilities. Yeah, Paxton replied with a faint smile. Obviously, he wasn't either. 11, although I also have powerful offensive weapons like a broom and a toilet brush. In fact, most of my weapons are of the auxiliary type, the dustpan for defense, the insecticide for blinding perception, the shampoo for polluting the field of vision, the shower gel for forcing people to fall. In contrast, Paxton's rolling stones, wooden stakes, steel bars, and concrete are real violent attacks. Therefore, we determined a new set of combat tactics with him as the main attacker and me as the defender and supporter. To defeat the zombie king, we must first improve the tacit understanding and cooperation between us. And the zombies on the 13th and 14th floors are exactly the best practice targets. Our cooperation turned out to be unexpectedly good. Basically, as soon as he opened his mouth, I knew what he was going to say, and as soon as I raised my hand, he knew what I was going to do, except that we would occasionally be unable to stand each other and use our ultimate moves against each other. Our cooperation can be said to be seamless. Later, Paxton even became more and more fierce in the fight. I simply slacked off and started fishing. I only moved appropriately when a zombie approached, and at other times I watched Paxton fight the zombies while doing a live eating show. It can be said that together, we were invincible. I was in charge of Gaga, slacking off and making some noise, and he was in charge of randomly killing. Enough already. Finally, after clearing a floor of zombies, Paxton, covered in blood, snatched the one-side crispy ice from my hand, broke it in half, took one half, and threw the other half back to me. You suddenly disappeared in the middle of the fight. I thought you were eaten by some kind-hearted zombie. I didn't expect you to be here eating alone. I just wanted to get back that familiar feeling of slacking off. It's been a long time since I last did it. I ate the remaining half of the onesie crispy ice and comfortably squinted my eyes. Since the end of the world, I had been fighting alone every day. I worked hard, collecting garbage and killing zombies without a single day off. I was simply a model of a poor worker being exploited by a capitalist. Now that I finally had a capable colleague, if I didn't take the opportunity to slack off for a while, would I still be human? Of course. While slacking off, I also carefully observed Paxton's moves and secretly memorized them. I also gave him a helping hand when needed. Almost done, right? I propped my chin with my hand. Anyway, we've known each other for so long. The tacit understanding thing can be maxed out with a little practice. I think this level of cooperation is already perfect. Yeah, after spending another 2 days clearing the zombies on the 14th floor, we can go and challenge the Zombie King on the 15th floor. Paxton nodded silently. The zombies on the 14th floor were more difficult to deal with than expected. Eventually, it took us 5 days to conquer them. During this period, Paxton was slightly injured, and I conjured up a dishcloth to treat his wound. Why are all your weapons so strange? Paxton looked at the dishcloth tied in a bow-like pattern on his hand, with a look of despair on his face. What's so strange about it? It's normal for a garbage collection superpower user to use cleaning tools as weapons, isn't it? I argued. And don't you think a dishcloth is very similar to the gauze used for bandaging in the hospital? So it's only natural that it can be used to treat minor skin injuries. The dishcloth covering Paxton's skin emitted a faint white light, and the wound under the white light healed quickly. Fine. Paxton turned his head away, no longer looking at the dishcloth. Take a rest tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, we'll officially go to the 15th floor to fight the Zombie King. Okay, I nodded. I have something to tell you after we kill the Zombie King. Paxton suddenly looked at me very seriously. The concentration in his eyes made my heart skip a beat. Paxton, you're not going to say that after we kill the Zombie King, we'll go back to our hometown and get married, are you? I looked at him with full alert. You can't set this kind of flag. Usually, people who say such things will definitely die in the end. And come to think of it, have you actually been secretly in love with me, having a crush on me and wanting to take this opportunity to pour out your heart, although I dislike you? But, stop. Paxton interrupted my words expressionlessly. Looking closely, one could find that the corners of his mouth were twitching. I just wanted to say that after the college entrance examination, I took the driver's license test. I didn't expect that the zombies would break out before I even got to touch a car. After getting along with Little Trash these days, I think it's really a great car. If we can successfully kill the Zombie King, can you let me drive Little Trash? Damn it. This guy can't walk when he sees a good car. Don't even think about it. My face darkened, and I said through gritted teeth, Little Trash is my dear daughter. How can you, a guy like you, touch it? All right. Paxton shrugged as if it didn't matter. I turned around and was about to walk towards the car when suddenly, he leaned close to my ear and said very softly, then, how about you tell me the content after? But in that passage just now, 12. Although Paxton had already described the power of the Zombie King to me in advance, when we actually encountered it, I truly realized what overwhelming pressure meant. This is bad. That was the first thought that flashed through my mind. I had thought that after spending so much time among the zombies, I had gradually become immune to their hideous appearance. But when I actually saw that creature, I still caught my breath. If the appearance of a zombie was like a rotting human, then the creature in front of me was already very difficult to recognize as human-shaped. It was more than 2 meters long, its limbs were extremely thin and long, but its torso was very thick, showing a scarlet color, as if its skin had been peeled off alive. Every time it took a step, pieces of bloody and wet things that resembled minced meat could be seen falling from its body. The entire 14th floor was filled with a strong smell of blood. That's right, the 14th floor. After some discussion, Paxton and I thought that instead of going to the unknown 15th floor, it would be better to lure the opponent to our own territory. To this end, I made some preparations on the 14th floor in advance, a giant magic circle drawn with shampoo and shower gel, aerosol insecticides placed in various corners that would automatically spray mist as long as the incantation was recited, and steel wool balls arranged in hidden places as hidden weapons. I was responsible for turning the 14th floor into a large hunting trap and secretly controlling the trap, while Paxton was responsible for luring the Zombie King over and confronting it head-on. The moment the Zombie King appeared, I immediately recited the incantation. The magic circle emitted a faint blue light, and the 6-pointed star pattern began to rotate. A huge barrier trapped the Zombie King inside. However, the opponent seemed to have discovered my intention. I heard a cold giggle of strange laughter. A large amount of blood suddenly flowed out from the Zombie King. The blood splashed onto every corner of the magic circle. The blue light of the magic circle became weaker and weaker, and finally, it even faintly emitted a red light. Not good. I could feel an evil aura contaminating my cleaning magic circle. I could even feel that evil aura trying to contaminate my spirit along with my consciousness connected to the magic circle. I immediately stopped and flew several pieces of soap out of my sleeve and threw them around the magic circle. Then, without hesitation, I directly detonated the magic circle. Shampoo that makes dandruff disappear without a trace. Taisheng Laojun, hurry up and make it explode. In an instant, the tyrannical blue light filled the entire 14th floor. The light and shadow directly engulfed the figure of the zombie king. But that only lasted for less than a second. The next second, the blue light slowly dissipated, revealing the figure of the zombie king that had slipped and fallen on the ground after stepping on the shower gel in the center of the magic circle. Originally, this magic circle was intended to be a cage to trap the zombie king, but I didn't expect the opponent's aura to be so powerful that it could directly contaminate the magic circle, forcing me to detonate the magic circle directly. And the result of detonating the magic circle was actually just to make it slip and fall. The strength of this zombie was far beyond my imagination. In the blink of an eye, the moment the zombie king slipped and fell, Paxton on the side seized the opportunity and used a move, not the heavenly burial of the stars, but the great meteorite technique. He directly summoned countless stones and smashed them towards the zombie king. The shower gel had the effect of forcibly knocking down and controlling the zombie king in a slipped state couldn't move at all and took this move of the great meteorite technique completely. Although it wasn't as smooth as planned, it was still a good start. I silently recited cleaning tool and joined the battle. Among the falling meteorites, Paxton also hid countless seeds. The moment they came into contact with the zombie king, the seeds immediately took root and germinated. Countless vines grew vigorously like a bamboo shoot after a spring rain. The vines crisscrossed and quickly formed a huge net, firmly trapping the zombie king inside. Well done, I silently praised in my heart and then raised the high-level weapon, the big mop, in my hand and rushed towards the zombie king, waving it. The mop stained with shit is like Lubu in his prime, I shouted heroically. Paxton turned his head and looked at me in horror. I'm not really stained, I'm just shouting randomly, I quickly explained. However, just at the moment when Paxton was distracted by his horror, the bloodlight in the vine net soared. With a roar from the zombie king, all the vines were broken into several sections, and the entire vine net was directly shattered. Not good. My combat instincts made my body quickly retreat. The next second, I saw thick bloodlight rushing towards me like lightning. It was the zombie king. Its target was me. I hurriedly conjured up a dustpan and a bucket to block. But those things couldn't even get close to it before turning into powder in the air. I gritted my teeth, stabilized my figure, and stopped retreating. I swung the mop and hit the zombie king hard. At the same time, the zombie king's scarlet claws and stinking gaping mouth also attacked me head-on. Boom! A huge cement board fell from the sky and blocked in front of me, also blocking the zombie king's way. The next second, countless steel bars flew from behind and stabbed directly at the zombie king's body. Taking this opportunity, I quickly bypassed the zombie king and joined Paxton. The steel bars landed on the zombie king, making a teeth-sour sound of metal collision and friction. However, after a rain of steel bars, the opponent was still unharmed. At this time, Paxton's face was very gloomy, and I couldn't help but frown. The zombie king's defense is too high. Ordinary attacks can't break through its defense at all. If we couldn't break through its iron wall-like defense, our attacks would be meaningless. I have a weapon that should be able to reduce the zombie king's defense in a short time, I said, but it won't last long, at most 15 seconds. In these 15 seconds, you use your most powerful attack moves and try to finish it off directly in the shortest time, okay? Paxton's face showed a brief look of struggle. But soon he nodded solemnly. The zombie king had already broken free from the rain of steel bars and was once again getting ready to attack us. I held my breath and recited the incantation again. Lihei dishwashing liquid, which specializes in hurting hands and leaving all residues. Activate. Countless transparent mucus shot out like sharp arrows breaking through the air and sprayed directly towards the entire body of the zombie king. The highly corrosive mucus landed on the zombie king's flesh without skin, sizzling with white smoke, and a painful roar came from the zombie king's throat. It actually worked. Paxton on the side concentrated his chi in his dantian, pinched his fingers in a spell, looking like an immortal Xingqiao sword appear. The next second, a green light flashed in his hand, and a long sword appeared in his hand. No. What did he call that sword just now? Xingqiao sword. Pfft. I tried my best not to laugh out loud. What a tacky name. No wonder Paxton showed a brief look of struggle on his face when I asked him to use his powerful moves just now. Looking closely, the sword body was completely made up of various plants, green all over, but there were big red flowers blooming on the hilt and the tip of the sword, and with each swing of Paxton's sword, big red flowers floated out. As the saying goes, red and green are a disaster. The gaudy appearance of this sword made people think of the big flowered cloth used by rural grandmothers to make cotton padded jackets in the 1980s. TSK, however, ugly as it was, the sharpness of this sword was far beyond my imagination. The sword blade broke through the wind and landed on the zombie king, directly piercing it through, and the next second, countless flowers and plants scrambled to drill out from the wound, frantically sucking the flesh and blood of the zombie king and spreading on its body. If it were a human, I'm afraid it would have already died. But unfortunately, a zombie won't die unless its head is bashed in. The wound instead enraged the zombie king. A hoarse and angry roar came from its throat, shaking the entire building. Then, it waved its sharp and hard claws and launched a crazy attack on Paxton. Bang, clang, bang, bang, dong. The claws and the sword parried and collided, making a terrifying crashing sound. The movements of the two were so fast that I could hardly see them with the naked eye. However, as time passed, the effect of the dishwashing liquid was slowly fading, and Paxton was gradually losing the upper hand. Suddenly, the zombie king elbowed Paxton. The force was so great that I could even hear the sound of his ribs breaking. The next second, Paxton's whole body was directly thrown several meters away. Paxton wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and quickly stood up again. I took a deep breath, and my eyes gradually turned cold. It seemed that it had finally come to this moment. A true chi surged in my body, everything between heaven and earth. Even the flow of time seemed to slow down, an ultimate divine weapon bestowed on me when I first awakened my superpower. Unlike the brooms and dustpans that were transformed, that weapon was a real divine weapon that demonstrated the honor of my Trash King superpower. Take this scepter that symbolizes the power of the king. You will be crowned the true king of the trash world in the city. From now on, all the trash pickers in the city will know that all the trash in the entire city has been contracted by you. You will stand at the top. There will be no more trash that you can't pick up, no more trash cans that you can't rummage through, and no more trash pickers who can compete with you for territory. Call out its name. At the moment of taking the scepter, you will finally be crowned king. This was the voice that appeared in my mind when I first awakened my superpower, but at that time, I refused it and sealed that divine weapon away. However, the moment of coronation had finally arrived. The calling voice sounded in my mind again. This time, I no longer resisted but softly called out its name. He who cleans all the filth in the mortal world, he who washes all the purity in the mortal world, you are the symbol of royal power, the manifestation of justice, the nemesis of filth, and the glory of scavenging. Appear, the scepter of the garbage king. Your name is Plunger. With the last chant, a brilliant ray of light suddenly enveloped the entire building, and I felt an unbearable weight in my hand. When I opened my eyes, in my hand was a 24-karat gold-plated plunger inlaid with diamonds. That's right, it was the supreme king among cleaning tools, the best solution for clogged toilets, and my most well-hidden trump card, Plunge. A terrifying suction force tore through time and space and directly sucked the zombie king in the distance firmly over. The already not-so-good-looking body of the zombie king was directly sucked by the plunger and couldn't move. Now, use your most powerful move to finish off the zombie king in one go. Just controlling the plunger had already taken all my concentration. At this moment, I simply didn't have the energy to deal a fatal blow to the zombie king. I could only count on Paxton. The Xingqiao sword flew horizontally and nailed the hands of the zombie king, which were desperately waving and struggling firmly to the ground. Paxton in the distance looked at the plunger in my hand with a look of despair and closed his eyes. I really didn't want to use this move, Paxton muttered to himself. The next second, I saw a brilliant white light burst out from his hand. It seemed that some powerful energy was rapidly gathering. What's going on? My face gradually became serious. This guy actually had a powerful move hidden, and judging from the dazzling light, I could feel that the power of his ultimate move was probably on a par with that of my plunger. The next second, the light dissipated, and Paxton walked towards here. I saw that in his hand there was a huge brick. There is no dust that I can't beat in the world, no brick that I can't lay. You are the symbol of prosperity, the manifestation of prosperity, the nemesis of desolation, and the glory of infrastructure. Appear, the holy book of the civil engineering dog. Your name is Brick. A somewhat familiar line, paired with Paxton's expressionless face without a glimmer of hope. Then, with a snap, the brick fell, and the head of the zombie king shattered like a big watermelon, breaking with a corresponding sound. 12. Although we successfully defeated the zombie king, neither Paxton nor I could show a smile on our faces. After all, if such embarrassing lines were recited in public, it would feel like the end of our lives. Paxton and I each turned around and silently put away the plunger and the brick. We both tacitly didn't say anything. After taking a break, I took out the vacuum cleaner and sucked up all the remaining supplies in this building. Detected that the task progress is 100%. Congratulations, you have successfully completed the task. If you can't even clean one city, how can you clean the world? The next area map has been unlocked for you. You can choose to stay in this city or enter the next city on your own. With the familiar voice in my mind, I let out a long sigh of relief. At the same time, a similar voice also sounded in Paxton's mind. Detected that the pre-task has been completed. Congratulations, you have successfully unlocked the task, the Infrastructure Maniac. Please restore all the damaged buildings in this city to their original state within a construction period of 2 months. Paxton and I looked at each other and both showed smiles. I will be staying here for a while. I have to restore the city before I can leave, Paxton said. What about you? What are your plans? I'll slack off for a while first. I touched my nose. I just finished working hard and don't want to hit the road immediately, so in the following time, Paxton and I drove Little Trash around, repairing the damaged buildings everywhere. Paxton's skills in mixing cement and laying bricks were getting stronger at a visible speed. I, on the other hand, very leisurely set up a small shed near the construction site and spent every day researching new dishes in various ways. I had several thousand tons of supplies. Before, because I was busy running around every day, I didn't have much time to eat well. Now I could finally enjoy myself for a while. In the evening, we had sweet and sour pork ribs, Coca-Cola chicken wings, and tomato and egg soup. Since Paxton started his hard life of mixing cement, his appetite had increased a lot. He gulped down a bowl of soup. By the way, you've been moving bricks every day, but you haven't even gotten darker. I poked his still fair face and said with emotion, I use my superpower to move the bricks, not do it by hand. Paxton said a bit speechlessly, yeah, that's true. The repair work is almost done. It will probably be all completed tomorrow. And then we can set off for the next place. Paxton looked at me. Do you remember what I told you before we fought the zombie king? There was a light shining in his eyes, incredibly bright. I felt a bit guilty and avoided his gaze. You want to drive Little Trash, right? Still no way. Little Trash is a car transformed by my superpower, and only I can drive it. But, Paxton looked at me with a smile in his eyes. But my passenger seat is still empty, so. My voice was so low that I could barely hear it myself, but Paxton took my hand and gently replied, with great pleasure, Story 2, the end was near, and I had no shelter, wandering the streets alone. In my previous life, I was evicted by my landlord due to a breach of contract. Coincidentally, the apocalypse struck, and I was killed by a zombie while searching for a new place to live. When I woke up, I found myself returned to the very noon of the apocalypse, this time, with a group of people. I was rebuilding the world on a small island, where we had ample food and clothing. Welcome. I woke from a nap to find myself dozing off in a convenience store, sitting next to my suitcase, which held all my belongings. The weather outside was clear and calm. Memories of my past life flooded my mind. Miss, I'm sorry, but as I mentioned before, we need to move back into this apartment. Please vacate it now. The landlords had come to my place early in the morning to change the locks, implying that I had no choice but to leave. But it's not the agreed time yet, and I haven't finished packing my things, I said, frowning. This is a special circumstance, and we apologize. Here is your deposit and compensation. Feel free to leave your large furniture here until you find a new place, then you can have someone move it, the landlady said apologetically, being thoroughly polite. I sighed. When you're under someone's roof, you have to bow your head. Although I hadn't been living there long, the landlords had been decent to me. Perhaps they really were in a special situation. I took the compensation, almost 10,000 yuan in cash, which felt surprisingly heavy in my hand. Since I had moved into this apartment with just my suitcase and hadn't been living there long, I hadn't acquired many belongings. I packed up my personal items and left the apartment, although I contacted a real estate agent immediately. After viewing several apartments with him, none were satisfactory. I decided to eat lunch and rest at the convenience store. Suddenly, I was brought back to the present moment. I had indeed been reborn at this time. If I remembered correctly, in my previous life, I was killed by zombies around sunset. If I didn't want to end up unprotected and surrounded by zombies on the street like before, finding a place to stay was urgent. After some thought, as a recent graduate with no house, no car, and no money, it was hard to survive alone in a big city. Even if I found an apartment immediately, after paying the rent and deposit, I wouldn't have enough money to reinforce the doors and windows, install security cameras, or stockpile supplies. Being alone made me an easy target for predators, and I had to be wary of landlords, neighbors, and even real estate agents, so I immediately searched for cruise travel on my phone and luckily found a 60-day cruise departing at 5 p.m. today from our city's port. The cheapest cabin cost 80,000 yuan. A long cruise meant ample supplies on board, and any ship that set sail before the outbreak would be a safe haven. I had to find a way onto that ship no matter what, with only 80,000 yuan. The money I had was far from enough. I tried applying for loans through a bank's lending app, but since I had no prior applications, they required a review, and the fastest they could disburse the funds was the next day. Left with no other choice, I called to book the cruise. Hello, can I still book a ticket for the Oriental Pearl cruise? I asked. Hello, which departure date for the Oriental Pearl are you inquiring about? A sweet, gentle voice responded. The one departing today at 5 in the afternoon. I'm sorry, madam. Tickets for this cruise were available for booking a year in advance and are already sold out. Would you like to check other departure dates? No, thank you. I hung up the phone and once again fell into despair. I closed my eyes and massaged my temples with my fingers, trying to relax. I needed to think of another solution. A sudden message on my phone caught my eye. There it was in my social media feed, a post that read, "Recruitment for crew members on the Eastern Pearl cruise." It listed a bunch of requirements and specific benefits. After a quick glance, I realized I met the basic criteria and immediately contacted the friend who posted it. He was a college classmate and we had worked together in the same club. We had a good relationship back in university. "Alexander, I saw your post about job openings on the Eastern Pearl. I'd like to apply." I got straight to the point. "Alyssa, are you sure? Do you have any experience working on a ship?" Alexander quickly responded, "Yes, I am fluent in English, Mandarin, and Cantonese. Skilled in making Chinese pastries and Western-style pastries, can play piano accompaniments, and am capable of various tasks like waiting tables, childcare, and cashiering. I'm up for anything that allows me to work on the Eastern Pearl today." I pitched myself eagerly. Alexander was initially puzzled since my major in university had nothing to do with hospitality, and he took a moment before replying. "I spoke to the manager, and he agreed to bring you aboard, but as you lack experience, you'll be paid an intern's wage." "Absolutely. I can start immediately," I replied eagerly. "Okay, come to Esport. We need to prepare for receiving guests. Actually, our staff was trained a few days ago, but I vouched for you and will guide you," he said. I felt lucky to have such a dependable friend. Our friendship hadn't faded over time. As I looked out the window at the ordinary streets, I made a resolve. I must ensure more people survive before departure. I had prepared for the worst-case scenario, thinking that if we were stranded, we must survive until rescue arrived. I wasn't sure what would be available on such a luxury cruise, but I knew security would be tight. Relying on my common sense, I bought items like a compass, solar panels, a water filter, flint, seeds, and some useful tools recommended by the store clerk. It didn't matter whether they would be needed. It was best to be prepared. Having spent the 10,000 yuan in cash given by my landlord, I packed my suitcase and took a taxi to Esport. Upon arrival, Alexander met me at a work passage and led me to the cruise ship, which stunned me with its opulence. The massive ship was docked, its deck as large as a plaza, with orderly portholes and a bustling crowd, resembling a skyscraper lying horizontally. "Go through the security check here, and once on board, just follow me." Alexander helped me with my luggage and exchanged greetings with other crew members. I boarded smoothly and settled my luggage with Alexander in the crew quarters. The room was small but had bunk beds, a table, 2 chairs, basic furniture, and a small private bathroom, luxurious compared to college dorms. "You got a single room, the other bed is unoccupied. Pretty good, right?" Alexander patted my shoulder. "I've got to go now. Settle in, change into your uniform, and meet me at the staff lounge on the 3rd floor at 4. I nodded, watching him leave, and glanced at my phone. It was just past 3 in the afternoon, and the end of the world was only about 2 hours away. Looking around, the room was small and windowless, but it was a safe shelter from the elements. I quickly organized my things, changed, and headed to the staff lounge ahead of time. Alexander briefed me on some important points and assigned me tasks, since I was still an intern. I was assigned some straightforward responsibilities, starting with replenishing food and drinks at tonight's dinner, followed by cleaning up after the event. At precisely 5:00 p.m., the Eastern Pearl set sail towards the open sea. As I gazed through the banquet hall's floor-to-ceiling windows at the shrinking landscape, a mix of confusion and apprehension filled my heart. Could we really escape the calamity on this ship, or might we encounter even worse events? As dinner time approached, guests started to arrive in small groups, all in high spirits and clearly enjoying their vacation, their conversations filled with laughter. However, around 5:30 p.m., people began checking their phones and discussing the news they received. While working, I couldn't use my phone, but I overheard snippets of conversations from guests. "Oh my, what's happening? Monsters suddenly appearing in the city center," exclaimed a lady as she watched a video on her phone. "Look, someone is live streaming it. How terrifying," another lady responded. "Isn't that zombies?" a young couple concluded. As more passengers on the ship saw the news, a wave of anxiety and fear began to permeate the banquet hall. It wasn't until the captain took control that the atmosphere began to calm. The captain, a distinguished Chinese gentleman in his 50s with graying hair, exuded a calm authority. He stepped onto the stage, originally set up for the welcome party, cleared his throat and announced, "Dear passengers, we have just received news that a zombie virus outbreak has occurred at our point of departure, and authorities are advising residents to seek safety immediately. We will conduct a thorough check of all passengers on board to ensure everyone's safety. Please rest assured." He then repeated the message in English. "We need to turn back. We have to go back." An angry passenger shouted, "My parents are still in S City. Do you want to go back to die? If you want to die, Don't drag us down with you, other angry voices drowned him out. The virus is in our departure city, but not in G country we are passing by. Right, let's seek refuge in another country, someone suggested calmly. The ship is currently on its regular course, ensuring everyone's safety. We have enough supplies to meet the needs of all on board for 30 days, and we will dock at a safe location for resupply afterward. Please adhere to our arrangements, the captain reassured everyone. With the captain's assurances, the passengers temporarily calmed down. I busied myself finishing my duties and helped in screening the passengers, thankfully finding everyone to be normal. At around 2:00 a.m., when I finished my shift and returned to my small room, I finally had time to check my phone for news. Hashtag a city outbreak of a new virus, spreading rapidly. Hashtag new virus cases appearing in cities B, K, G, W, and others. Hashtag state media advises, all residents avoid going out. Hashtag cause of new virus currently unknown. Hashtag no one knew why the virus could spread so rapidly across different regions in just a few hours. Many infected had turned into zombies, attacking the unsuspecting civilians, with those bitten quickly mutating into unconscious new virus carriers. I hadn't anticipated that the outbreak was just the first sign of the apocalypse, with subsequent extreme weather and various natural disasters nearly destroying the world. The next day, I went to the kitchen at 6:30 a.m. to help prepare breakfast and set up the dining area. Despite the strangely subdued atmosphere on the ship, it remained largely unaffected by the outside world. After a night of sailing, we were even further from land, surrounded by nothing but the sea. I asked around among the other staff members, possibly due to the off-peak travel season, the ship carried fewer people than usual. With over 900 passengers and 600 crew members, roughly the population of a small neighborhood. I shuddered at the thought of so many people possibly facing a test of humanity in an apocalyptic scenario, but now, on the same boat, we were all tied to the same fate. A broken nest does not spare any eggs, as the saying goes, and I believed everyone understood this principle. On the third day of the apocalypse, the trending news updated. Hashtag new virus has spread to 120 countries worldwide. Hashtag frequent extreme weather events, glaciers melting rapidly. Hashtag a 9.0 magnitude earthquake has struck off the east coast of Japan. Hashtag on the seventh day of the apocalypse, the Eastern Pearl also faced a crisis. Within minutes, dark clouds almost completely obscured the sunlight. The fog at sea grew denser by the minute. Alexander, an experienced maritime worker, looked at the scene and said, "This is bad. A severe storm might be on its way." He wondered to himself. I always track the weather forecast closely before setting sail to avoid any storms. I realized something was wrong. We must evacuate the passengers from the deck immediately. Alexander nodded and quickly reported to his superiors. The captain issued orders swiftly. Alexander's prediction was accurate. As I was evacuating tourists who were still enjoying themselves on the deck, dense raindrops pelted me, and the sky, filled with dark clouds, brought a violent storm. Frequent lightning tore through the thick fog, which was still dense beyond even the Oriental Pearl. A ship of considerable tonnage began to sway under the deluge. To safeguard against extreme weather, all passengers please return to indoor areas. The loudspeakers blared repeatedly. Passengers on the deck were quickly moved indoors. A young girl stood under a large parasol. Confused and crying hoarsely, I rushed over to pick her up, feeling raindrops sting like needles on my skin. As a huge shadow loomed ominously at the edge of the sea, holding the little girl, I returned to the deck cabin and stopped a pair of parents rushing to the deck, confirming they were the girl's parents before handing her over to them. "Tsunami," a passenger behind me whispered in terror. I turned to see the sea near us rise like a giant, like rolling mountains, seemingly retreating and then quickly surging towards our ship. Facing a tsunami, there was a risk of the ship capsizing. Wave after wave, earthquake-like tremors pushed towards our vessel, with the storm and tsunami exerting their force simultaneously, causing massive noise and uncontrollable shaking that terrified everyone on board. After what felt like an eternity, the tsunami gradually subsided. Thanks to being in the deep sea area, our ship did not capsize, but all items on the deck were either swept away or destroyed, leaving only some fish stunned by the waves. The bad news was that due to the damage and changes in the Earth's magnetic field, the ship's communication equipment, navigational instruments, and monitoring systems all failed. Our ship had truly become an isolated island in the ocean, drifting aimlessly. The captain, the ship's equipment may be damaged, and its power is significantly reduced, a crew member reported to the captain. On the 14th day of the apocalypse, it had been raining for 7 days and nights, an anomaly not typical for this region but a global catastrophe. The last few trending news items I saw were Yangtze and Yellow Rivers break through levees, multiple cities submerged, hashtag rainfall in the Sahara Desert over 7 days exceeds all previous records, hashtag coastline receding, residents urgently evacuate, hashtag flood survival guide, hashtag unusually high temperatures at the North and South Poles, This meant that the rainfall in the Sahara Desert over the past 7 days had surpassed the total recorded rainfall ever for the area, a terrifying amount of precipitation. The interconnectedness of rivers and seas brought immeasurable loss of property and life to coastal residents. That day, we lost all signals, including mobile phone signals, cutting us off from the outside world. Later, the Oriental Pearl faced another tsunami nearly as strong as the first, causing even more severe damage to the ship. "Captain, we must reach shore before the next tsunami hits. Our ship won't last much longer," the first officer and others urged anxiously. The captain was not oblivious to the situation nor indifferent. It was just that all the ship's modern equipment was damaged, making it impossible to determine position or direction. We were merely relying on the weakened propulsion system. "If land is visible, head for it immediately to seek help," the captain ordered tersely. On the 23rd day of the apocalypse, the crew finally spotted land. The captain decided to steer towards this unknown territory, but it was too late. As we approached the small island, the ship struck a reef during its passage, and this luxurious behemoth could not avoid a capsizing fate. Water flooded into the hull, accelerating the tilt. To save lives, the safety officers immediately deployed lifeboats. Passengers scrambled chaotically. Some were pushed into the boats while others were shoved out, falling into the deep sea. At that moment, there was no distinction between passengers and crew members. Everyone knew that staying on the ship meant certain death, while getting on a lifeboat offered a slim chance of survival. There was no time to think. I rushed back to my room to grab my survival kit bag, stuffing it with some compressed biscuits and a few bottles of drinking water, and then hurried to the deck. All the way, I searched for Alexander with my eyes, but the chaos on the ship made it impossible to find him. "Where have you been? I've been looking everywhere for you." Alexander suddenly appeared, grabbing my arm. "Come with me," he said with the same excitement in his voice as the day he first took me to the dormitory. "You take this lifeboat." Before I could react, he pushed me onto a small lifeboat and released its securing ropes. There were already 6 people on board, an elderly couple, a trembling foreign girl, the ship's cleaner Beatrice, and the mother and daughter I had seen on the day of the storm. "Alexander, come down quick," I shouted desperately at him. "This boat has a capacity of 6 people. It's fine for a small child, but it's full now. I'll find another one," Alexander replied casually, not stopping his actions. "No, give me your hand quickly." I reached out to him, but he was moving farther away. "I took you out to sea. It's my job to get you back safely." Alexander smiled, then finally released the lifeboat completely, and it touched the water. "There are life jackets on board, to get everyone to wear them," he shouted louder as we drifted apart. "Alyssa, survive." Those were the last words I heard him say to me. The storm didn't stop, and people continued to jump into the sea. The large raindrops beat down on us, and I couldn't help but burst into tears. What can I do? Even if I am reborn, I can't save everyone. I can't make everyone on the ship survive. I still depend on the sacrifice of others to be the one who is saved. In the storm, Alexander's words, "Alyssa, survive," gave me strength, as did the smiling wave he gave me when he first saw me at the port. This strength sprouted from the depths of my heart, helping me to live on and meet many kind and beautiful people. I was reborn once again. I wiped my face, where tears mixed with rain, and looked around at the silent people in the boat. "Everyone, put on your life jackets first." I pointed out the location of the life jackets, secured around the edge of the lifeboat, and demonstrated how to wear them correctly. The night engulfed the entire sea, and our only prayer was that the lifeboat could reach the land we had previously hoped for as quickly as possible. Being exposed to the rain without shelter made it easy to catch a cold or fever, which could lead to severe pneumonia in our resource-scarce situation. Undoubtedly a death sentence. Fortunately, as dawn broke, I was surprised to find that we were very close to land. I asked everyone to muster their spirits and follow my command to paddle towards the land. Although our boat was filled with the elderly, children, and women, we were surprisingly united and managed to bring the boat to shore. It seemed like an uninhabited island, with a few rugged peaks and unexpectedly a grassland with some common tropical and subtropical trees. Though the status of animals was unknown, and there were no signs of human habitation, I was puzzled. Why would grasslands and subtropical plants appear together on this small island? I grew up in the countryside and have experience in outdoor survival. Everyone must have confidence, I said with renewed courage, not forgetting the goal I had set for myself. "We need to find a flat area that can shelter us from wind and rain. A cave would be ideal, otherwise we are at risk of falling ill," I explained as I helped 2 elderly people off the boat. "Given the circumstances, it would be best for us to stick together rather than splitting up to search." The foreign girl had recovered a bit and could speak English, so I communicated with her in English. "Lisa, You mentioned you have hiking experience, so lead the way and keep an eye out for any caves or similar shelters. I stayed in the back, picking up shells and placing them along our path as markers. Although the two elderly people were frail, they still supported each other and did their best to walk. Beatrice noticed some berries along the path which she deemed edible, so she gathered them to share with everyone, giving us a little boost of energy. Fortunately, we found a cave not far from the coast. It was quite spacious inside, comfortably accommodating all 7 of us. We rested on the spot, and I opened my backpack to check our supplies. We had 10 compressed biscuits, 5 bottles of mineral water, and survival items like a compass, solar panel, water filter, flint, and seeds that I had bought before boarding. Everyone shared what they had managed to bring in the rush, along with a few supplies from the lifeboat, with 7 of us. Even if we rationed, our supplies wouldn't last more than 7 days. After that, we would run out of food and water. On this deserted island, we had to find a way to be self-sufficient to survive. After a day of drifting and being soaked to the bone, we all started feeling a bit chilly. Logic dictated that we needed to start a fire immediately to dry our clothes and warm up. Despite the continuous rain making the islands wood damp, there were still some dry parts that could be used. And I had brought some fire-starting tools, so we could still manage to start a fire. I turned to the foreign girl for her opinion. Lisa, we need to start a fire quickly. Could you help me find some dry branches? She nodded in agreement. Moreover, we couldn't start a fire inside the cave as incomplete combustion would create a lot of smoke and toxic gases, which would be very dangerous. But the damp outside environment and ongoing raindrops could easily extinguish a fire, I told the others. Lisa and I will look for materials to start a fire. Grandpa, Grandma, Beatrice, could you try to build a rain shelter outside our cave? We need to light the fire near the entrance. They all agreed to my plan without any objections. Mrs. and, exhausted, put Brianna to sleep, stating she could clear some stones and other obstacles inside the cave to expand our living space. Everyone was doing their best to contribute. Lisa and I, armed with a multi-tool knife and a shovel, walked cautiously into the rain to avoid any dangers caused by blurred vision. Not far off, we saw some large-leafed plants with thick roots and huge leaves, perfect for making umbrellas or for use as material for the rain shelter. Lisa and I quickly cut down 5 large leaves, using them as makeshift umbrellas. As we returned to the cave, we gave 3 to Beatrice and the others, then showed them where to find these large-leafed plants. Be sure to stay safe, I cautioned them. As Lisa and I went further to look for fire-making materials, we snapped small branches to check if they were dry inside, gathering those that were usable, and also collected some dry, thick branches to use their dry insides as tinder. By the time we had gathered enough and returned to the cave, Beatrice and the others had already erected a basic structure for the rain shelter using rocks and various lengths of branches, with the lush green leaves covering the top. To isolate the dampness from the ground, they also laid some stones and wood pieces. Everyone was really pulling their weight. The side of the cave where the entrance was located was already sheltered from the wind, and the rain shelter they built was a great help. I put down the branches and immediately attempted to start a fire, first drilling a hole in a dry large branch, before inserting the previously purchased cotton padding. I shaped the dry parts of the branches into wood shavings, then sparked a flame using flint, continually adjusting the amount of shavings as needed. As the first wisp of smoke gave way to a flickering flame that gradually grew stronger, my anxiety was halved. Having fire meant we had warmth and drinkable water, giving us hope for survival. Beatrice worked efficiently, setting up a rack with branches to dry our clothes. I also placed the extra branches I had collected near the fire to dry them out, reducing their moisture so they would ignite better when needed. To ensure a continuous supply of fire, Lisa and I made 2 more trips at dawn to gather suitable branches. By the time we returned on the second trip, the old man was nowhere to be seen, wearing only her undergarments. The old lady said, "This is plenty of firewood, enough already, take off your clothes and dry them." The old man said it was inconvenient for him here, so he took a flashlight and went deeper into the cave. It turned out that the grandfather had left to maintain decorum between men and women. When our clothes were almost dry, the grandfather emerged from the depths of the cave, excitedly saying, "There's a huge space beyond this narrow entrance." Everyone was surprised by this discovery. "We can't go in yet. The cave has been sealed too long and might contain toxic gases." Although I was happy about this discovery, we had to be cautious in our survival, especially since there were no medical resources available. As dusk approached, we divided up the food and water to fill our stomachs, arranged shifts to guard the fire, and lay down on a bed of leaves to sleep. In the middle of the night, another lifeboat arrived. Suddenly, Brianna started crying loudly, piercing the quiet of the rainy night. Everyone was awakened, and Mrs. N, who had recently become a mother, immediately picked up Brianna to comfort her and stop her crying. I who was on duty tending the fire, suddenly felt uneasy, staring into the night and guided by the faint moonlight. I noticed an extra lifeboat at the shore and a vague figure approaching our direction. Someone is coming. I immediately alerted everyone. Could it be other survivors? Lisa asked, rubbing her eyes. Possibly. I was not sure, but we need to be on alert. The figure approached closer, guided by the light of the fire, and I could gradually make out his features, a man in his 30s. Carrying a large backpack. By now, everyone had sat up, and as he drew closer, he seemed to be assessing us. Are you survivors from the Eastern Pearl too? He looked relieved. Thank God, I found kin. He said this, but his eyes were darting around, sizing up both the people and their belongings. I remembered seeing him during the chaotic moments before the ship capsized, forcefully squeezing onto a lifeboat and harshly pushing a girl off. Oh my God, he's a survivor too, Lisa said, patting my shoulder joyfully. Are you alone? I asked tentatively, seeing my hesitation. He quickly replied, yes, just me. It was strange. Why was he the only survivor in an undamaged lifeboat? Weren't you on the lifeboat? What happened to the other survivors? I tried to probe further, careful not to provoke him suddenly. Hey, it was the tsunami. The waves swept everyone else away. He gave a seemingly reasonable explanation. Can I come in and get out of the rain? Yet I couldn't trust him. His large backpack was conspicuously prominent. His demeanor and tone didn't seem like someone who had narrowly escaped disaster. He shoved others into the sea. If we had let him stay, we would have undoubtedly become his next prey. Seeing us silent, the man thought we consented and walked in, setting down his heavy backpack. Do you have any food? He asked, scanning around with his eyes. Fortunately, we had already packed everything away before going to sleep, so he didn't immediately find our supplies. Yes, I said briskly. I noticed Beatrice giving me a look, signaling not to be too honest. We were worried about wild animals attacking, so we stored everything in a cave, I said to Beatrice with a wink, then turned back to the man. Oh, I'm starving. Give me something to eat. The man motioned for us to share our food. Seeing hesitation on everyone's faces and no one speaking up or moving, the man dropped his pretense. He pulled out a knife and said viciously, bring out the food now. I'm a desperado. I'll go with you to get it, I said, pretending to be very scared, picked up a flashlight, and lit a torch from the fire. Don't play tricks. If you lie, I'll kill all of you. He pressed the knife against my waist. We walked a few steps inside, and a very narrow entrance suddenly appeared before us. Where's the path? The man didn't see the space inside and was starting to get furious. Just sidle through there, and you'll see it's quite spacious inside. That's where we've put everything, I said in a low, frightened voice. You go in and bring it out. The man made another demand. No, it's too dark inside. I'm scared. I pretended to tremble and squeezed out some tears. Big brother, please, let's go in together, seeing my frail appearance. The man snorted and motioned for me to go first. I went ahead, holding the torch in one hand and tightly grasping his arm with the other. Once we were both inside the cave, I suddenly screamed, "Ah, there's a snake on the floor, help, ah." The man was startled by my scream and instinctively looked down. Seizing the moment, I swung the torch in front of his eyes, causing him to close them from the smoke. Before he could react, I hurled the torch upward with force. The torch struck the rocky ceiling with a bang, causing numerous shadows to fly about as if startled. I slipped through the narrow entrance, being slim, and managed to get out of the cave smoothly. As the torch fell, it hit the man, causing him pain, and then he was violently attacked by bats. He also tried to squeeze through the gap, but his vision blurred in the dark and the chaos of being chased by bats. He just futilely slammed his body against the rocks. I motioned for everyone to clear a path and used the faint light of the fire to guide the way in the dark. The man finally burst out of the cave, trying to run into the rain to disperse the swarm of bats. Guided by the firelight, he quickly ran towards a cliff and fell off. Everyone was shocked and sweaty. The appearance of this strange man made us think we wouldn't survive the night. If Brianna hadn't suddenly cried, he might have killed all of us in our sleep. If we had said or done anything wrong in those few minutes, his suspicion might have led him to slaughter us all. If we hadn't defended ourselves successfully, we likely would have met a grisly fate. Why does he have to do this? We're all survivors. Wouldn't it be better if we just tried to live on together? Why does he want to kill us? Lisa asked, frightened and perplexed. Human nature, it just can't stand the test. I replied succinctly. The storm grew fiercer, with rain and lightning. Yet I somehow felt that nature wasn't so terrifying after all. Sometimes, it is kind. Rain meant caves to shield us, shortages of water and food brought us berries and rainwater to nourish us in our most vulnerable moments, and darkness became our best protector. Some people are truly the most frightening of all. Alyssa, how did you know there were bats in here? Grandma asked. I didn't really know, but I saw them by chance when I entered before him, and thought maybe we could give it a try. I said, squeezing Grandma's hand. If there hadn't been any bats, I would have taken it step by step and thought of something else. It's thanks to Grandpa saying there was a big space inside that I thought of luring him in. In the worst case, I could have tried to trap him inside and buy some time, even if it meant sacrificing myself. If it could ensure everyone's safety, it would be worth it, after hearing what I had to say. The girls came over and hugged me, and Grandpa patted my shoulder. "We must survive together, survive until the day help arrives, Mrs. and said, wiping her tears. I responded to them one by one, and turned to see the climbing pack left by the man. We dared not sleep deeply anymore, so we started to check the items in the climbing pack. Besides food and drinking water, he left some survival tools we didn't have, like ropes and whistles. There were also two very useful items: a satellite phone and a medical first aid kit. With the satellite phone, it meant we could make contact with the outside world, and the medical first aid kit could help us manage some injuries and illnesses. Although the situation outside was still unknown, we now had a new focus. No one could have imagined that since the day we set foot on this deserted island, we had already been living here for 12 years. 12 years can't be converted into an exact number of days, because sometimes we might forget to keep track. The storm stopped a few days after the man's death, and the climate returned to normal. Thanks to the survival tools we possessed, we gradually solved the food and water issues during the toughest times. We gathered berries, mushrooms, and wild vegetables, and made long spears to fish along the shore. We collected rainwater with filters, gathered dew with leaves in the mornings, and later made clay pots to store these precious freshwater resources. We began to explore this resource-rich island, discovered a clear stream, and relying on our own hands, cleared the land near the flat grasslands to sow the seeds I had bought. I taught everyone farming techniques, although not every seed adapted well to the land and thrived. Gradually, we were able to sustain ourselves. It took us about a year to build a shelter, move out of the cave, and in the following years, continuously upgrade and fortify it. The solar panels I bought could power our communication devices, but to save energy, we agreed to use the satellite phone to contact the outside world every Monday. However, in those 12 years, we never received a response. Sometimes, we felt particularly lonely, as if we were the forgotten ones of this world. Lisa had learned Chinese. She was a chatterbox, always engaging us in conversations. Probably because for the first year she could only talk to me. Brianna, raised under our collective care, had grown into a healthy young girl, having lived on this island since she could remember. We often told her stories of the outside world, cities, and technology, which she listened to with a mix of understanding and imagination. Beatrice took great care of us, and the most delicious meals we had came from her hands. When she had free time, she often daydreamed, missing her family far away. Mrs. and had completely lost the temperament of a wealthy lady. She worked with us, cooked with us, laughed and chatted with us, and together we raised Brianna. Over these 12 years, we also said goodbye to Grandma and Grandpa. When they were alive, they were our craft experts, creating many practical items with the limited materials available on the island, but as they aged, they were taken from us by typhoid. We planted many flowers next to their graves. No one knows how many hardships we've faced, like the time I almost got killed by a wild boar that ambushed me when I first went hunting with the bow Grandpa made. But today, I can lie in the courtyard formed by our huts and bask in the sun. As usual, I used the satellite phone to contact the outside world this Monday, and this time I received a crackling echo. This feedback was unlike any before, so I called everyone else to listen. Regrettably, the signal quickly cut out again. But this also gave us great confidence that someone could hear our voices. We began trying once a day, then every 3 days, and finally back to once every 7 days. Heaven gave us a glimmer of hope, then cruelly took it away. Alyssa, isn't it also nice to stay here? I really like this place. Brianna comforted me. Yes, it has been 12 years since we left the mainland, and I have no idea what the outside world is like now. I thought I would never get used to living on an isolated island, but I gradually got used to it and even started to enjoy the simple and harmonious life of rising with the sun, resting at sunset, climbing mountains, watching the sea, fishing, and teasing birds when troubled. On a sunny afternoon, I was napping in the house when the unusual sound of a helicopter circling overhead woke me. A helicopter landed near our farmland. Captain, there are houses here. The distress signal was sent from here, reported several young people in uniforms swiftly to their superior. Is it a rescue team? Really a rescue team? I was stunned, quickly gathering everyone. Look, we're being saved. The rescue team's captain and members then entered our house and saw us dressed in leaf clothing. We received your distress signal, and after months of positioning and searching, we finally found you, said the rescue team excitedly. Beatrice, overwhelmed with emotion, burst into tears. Can we go back now? We've been here for 12 years. She could finally go back to see her long-missed family. The rescue team members looked at each other, and after a long pause, the captain spoke. You need to prepare yourselves mentally. 12 years have changed a lot. What do you mean? Beatrice asked anxiously. In these 12 years, human society has suffered many devastating blows: zombie viruses, extreme rainstorms, earthquakes, tsunamis, and the secondary disasters and viruses they brought. The captain paused. Now the global human population is less than 1 billion. Earth had lost 6/7 of its population in the apocalypse, a fact we could never have imagined, but those painful experiences are in the past, and now the order of human society is slowly being restored, especially in our country. The protection of the people has never been relaxed, the captain patiently explained. People now live in very sturdy underground cities, rebuilding society. After hearing the captain's explanation, I felt a complex mix of emotions. During the tumultuous times outside, this isolated island opened its gentle arms to us, providing the safest shelter and shielding us from nearly all dangers and disasters. On the day of departure, I was truly reluctant to leave. Do you have any belongings to pack? We need to return as soon as possible. The captain asked us to pack our belongings and board the helicopter. I took out the cured meats and dried fruits and vegetables we had made ourselves and distributed them to the rescue team members. After packing our belongings, I and the others boarded the helicopter, taking one last look at the island. I couldn't help but shed tears for the 12 years of mutual dependence and for all that it had provided us. I thought, goodbye, little island. I leave you to the native flora and fauna here. We looked down at the world from the air. Now only a scarred shell of itself. In the cities, there were no skyscrapers, bustling roads, or lively crowds, only ruins that recorded the once thriving civilization. Nature had little greenery left. Many areas were covered with loess, eroded by deserts. Back in human society, the few of us were arranged to live in the same underground city. It was somewhat like the Oriental Pearl we had once boarded, with many layers and different zones, where people could meet all their needs without leaving. We tried to adapt to the pace of rebuilding the post-disaster world, occasionally missing our island life. The days on the island faded from me like a misty dream, gradually being forgotten, as if they were experiences from a past life. The bustling modern society before the apocalypse now seemed like a lifetime from even before that. Many conveniences and familiar concepts that we used to take for granted have now become vague. Fortunately, we islanders also have time to gather after work, reminiscing about the life we've experienced together and sharing the new skills we've learned. Living in the present is the greatest happiness.